have started that now. Getting my screens arranged. Okay, so let's get started. My name's Amy Birch. I'm a traffic engineer and consultant that works for NDOT, the Nashville Department of Transportation, to help facilitate the Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program. And we have a few people joining. So like I said, I'm Amy Birch, and thanks for being here this evening. We have a pretty small group, so if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask those as we go along, or you can type them in the chat box. With me, I also have Lon Lee with the consultant team that works with NDOT, and she'll be monitoring the chat box in case I don't see your questions come up. She can let me know that I need to answer those questions. But we're here to talk about the traffic calming project for Joe Pyron Drive, which was recently selected for the program. And so we're going to go through some background information about the program, how the street was selected, our process moving forward, our toolbox of that we use for traffic calming measures, and present to you a draft plan that we'd like input on, and then next steps as we go through the program. So let's get started with some background information. What is traffic calming? And this program, we call it the Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program. It focuses on residential streets. We really only work on residential streets.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We just got a text though from our council person,
Okay.
Tanya Hancock.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "Can you guys do you have a link you can send me? Mine isn't working." So I think he wants to participate.
Sure. Let me do that right now, if you'll give me a second.
Do you have her number, or should I?
She needs a text. I have an email to her. I have her email.
She wants Tanya in this.
Let's see. Grab the link. Let's see.
I can text her the email. I have
Good.
my phone if someone wants to send it. Probably in the chat, maybe. Or you can say it out loud. Right.
I believe it. I was looking for this the shortcut one that we create for the mailer. I think it is. I'm just getting to it. All right, let me put it in the chat. So it's tinyurl.com//Joe Pyron. Forgot we had that short one. I was looking for the long one. Do we have her phone number, or you can maybe copy that and type it in to her?
May I share the phone number with you and you send it to her?
Certainly.
615-982-5035.
I may have to get you to repeat that. 615-982. What were the last four?
5035. So
982. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Give me 1 second. I might have this. Council member, is that you that just joined us?
Yes, I had to dial in, but I'm here.
Okay, I just text you the link that if that works better for you. Sorry about that.
No worries. I'll keep trying to link in. Otherwise, I'll just stay on the phone.
Okay, you've likely seen most of this background info before from some other streets, so hopefully that will help you listen along. So we'll get back to it. We just got started, so you didn't miss really anything. But we do this program on residential streets. And the whole idea is to install physical solutions that encourage slower vehicular speeds over the length of the street. And so we're really targeting speed reduction through this program. And we often talk about the 3 E's of traffic calming, which is education, enforcement, and engineering. Education is a lot of what we do about, just educating the public on what traffic calming measures are, but the reason why we install those. And we do that through these meetings, as well as other more public-facing information and educational programs. But then the enforcement is obviously what the police department does, but we know that the police department has a huge job, and they really can't be on all these residential streets every day and every hour. So that's why this program focuses on engineering. How do we change the street or adapt the street to encourage those slow speeds and safer driver behaviors? So that's what this program focuses on, is the engineering. And we do that because we know that there's a strong correlation between safety and speed. And this kind of falls in line with the Vision Zero program that NDOT has and that all of Metro has adopted, where we are striving to achieve 0 deaths on the road. And part of that is curtailing speeding, because speeding really, it leads to more crashes, and it leads to more severe crashes. So in this chart, we're showing that at 25 miles per hour, a pedestrian that's hit by a vehicle has an 89% chance of survival. But when that vehicle speed goes up to 35 miles per hour, the pedestrian's chance of survival goes down to 68%. And then when we go up, when the vehicle speed goes to 45 miles per hour, the chance of survival goes down to 35%. So we know that speeding can be really detrimental for a pedestrian that's also trying to use the street. And speeding, if you think about it, when the faster you're going, the less cone of vision that you have. So you can't really see what's outside the roadway so much. You also have a much slower reaction time. So when you're driving at slower speeds, and so you see something in the road, you have a better ability to slow down faster and avoid a collision altogether in the first place. But when they do happen, they're less severe at slower speed. So that's really what we're targeting here through this program, is slow speeds on residential streets. It's a very popular program, I'll say, that the neighborhood street applications that we've received as of August of last year, we had over 500 streets that had applied for traffic calming. And that's shown in the map on the right. Those pink lines represent streets that have asked for traffic calming and applied for it. And this is just to show you the sheer magnitude of the demand in this program. And as of last summer, there were 85 neighborhood streets that were selected. We typically select 50 per year, NDOT does, and they're divided into two groupings, 25 and 25. But last summer, due to some additional budget that was available that was allocated by council, the neighborhood street traffic calming program was able to select an additional 60 on top of the 25 that we typically would select. So that's why it was 85 in this most recent announcement. So outside the traffic calming program, there's a excellent tool that Metro has called Hub Nashville. If you're not familiar with it, we've got some info here about it, but essentially this is where you can report things and services that are needed, such as a street light is out, a traffic signal is not working, a sign's been knocked down, there's a storm grate that's clogged and needs to be cleaned because it's causing flooding in your yard or something like that. Requests about trash, all of those Metro services. This is a great place to report those issues or ask for service. So you can do that through calling 311. Their hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, I believe. There's also an online website you can use, hub.nashville.gov, or there's an app you can download to your smartphone and make those requests that way. And what's great about Hub is that you get a service number request so that you can follow up with it if you need follow-up. So it's just a great way to reach the correct department because this system kind of takes that information and gets it to the right department, the right person that's going to be able to answer your question or solve your problem. So back to traffic calming though. We have a prioritization process because, you know, we obviously have a lot of demand of streets and residents who have asked for traffic calming, but how do we select those ones? So we score each street essentially out of 100 points, and those 100 points are divvied up into 5 main categories. And so we collect this data and on every street that's requested traffic calming and measure them and select those that score at the highest. So our main criteria are vehicular speeds, which is worth 45% of our score. So we actually, you know, go out and measure the speed on that street and compare that versus the 25 mile per hour speed limit that we have on most residential streets. And then we also look at the volume of traffic, the total vehicles per day. That's worth 25% of the score. We also look at trip destinations. Those are places where we would expect that would attract pedestrian traffic. So schools, libraries, community centers, parks, places where if they're in close proximity to a street, you would expect people to walk from the neighborhood to this destination. We also look at non-driver accommodations, which is worth 10% of our score. And that is whether there's a lack of sidewalk or there are bike lanes on the street or greenways nearby, bus routes and bus stops. So, you know, if there's not sidewalks on the street at all, then it gets a higher score within that category. We also look back at 10 years worth of the most recent 10 years of pedestrian injury and fatality on a street. So we call this the vulnerable user injury and fatalities. And so that's worth 15% of the score, whether there's been those type of injuries and fatalities. So we add all these scores up for every street that's requested traffic calming, and then we end up with every street has a score, and we select those that score in the highest. So Joe Pyron was one of those streets that was selected in August. And so our area that we're looking at is the street between Muley's Bend and Apache Lane. So some of our data points that we looked at in selecting this street, we measured the 85th percentile speed to be 36 miles per hour, where the posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour. We measured the daily volume, that's both directions of traffic on the street, to be just under 1,000 vehicles per day. And then the street width is about 31 feet wide, and there's no sidewalks, as you know, on your street, and this is categorized as a local street. So here is a map showing our study area. I've highlighted Joe Pyron in green, in yellow, excuse me. And this map is taken from our online tracker map on NDOT's traffic calming website. So that's where we kind of keep track and show which streets have applied for traffic calming. So those streets that are shown in the pink are applications that we have on file for those streets, but they have not been selected for traffic calming as of yet. And then the streets in green are those that have been selected and are in the process or progress somewhere in the design phase or the balloting phase, which we'll get to, or maybe waiting for construction. So Nawakwa Trail is one of those streets nearby your neighborhood or your street that is in that process of, I believe, probably waiting for the construction to be installed for that traffic calming plan. We don't have any in this view that are shown as completed traffic calming projects yet, but those are also shown in our tracker. So again, our street is the segment between Muley's Bend and Apache Lane. So now we're going to talk about our toolbox. These are the measures that we use in the program to encourage slower speeds. Our main tool that we use are called speed cushions. These are rubberized devices that are installed on the pavement in several different configurations depending on the width of the street and other characteristics of the street, but they are vertical devices that you may think of them as speed humps, but the cushions are unique in that they have the gaps between them to allow for emergency response vehicles to not be as affected, but they're still wide enough, and the configurations that we put them in still are very effective for passenger vehicles to drive over and slow down as they approach and travel over them. We will arrange these in several different configurations. They may have different markings on them depending on the markings on the street. Like if the street has the center line, like the picture in the top left, but it's not wide enough to put 3 across, we put 1 in each lane like shown there. Or in the bottom right, that road has a center line as well, but it's wider, so we wanted to stretch them further apart to cover the whole street. So the markings on that center cushion actually have a center line on them. So you're meant to drive straight over them. Some people will try to drive one wheel on and one wheel off and use the gap. It's not more comfortable that way. I actually find that it's much more uncomfortable to speed over them with one wheel on and off. But that does sometimes happen. We will incorporate some other design tactics to discourage that, like the flexible delineator post, particularly in places where like this picture on the bottom right, we have a bike lane that we want to protect. We may use those flexible white delineator posts. Another feature of the speed cushions that we always incorporate is the warning signage that you see in the top left photo. Is it says speed cushions with an advisory speed plaque on it, and we'll post those right next to the cushion. In most cases, sometimes they're in advance, but in most cases we'll put them right next to the cushion. Let's see. As you can see, the picture in the bottom left of the slide is showing kind of the profile view of a 10.5 foot long cushion. So it's 10.5 feet, the length that you drive over the cushion. And so that one has like a flat section in the middle, and then it kind of ramps up on both sides, but it's at its highest, they're 3 inches high. And they are sloped on the edges, as you can kind of maybe make out in that picture. So when we use these speed cushions, we will put them in a series, meaning we'll put several sets along the length of the street, and we'll space those out somewhere between 300 and 500 feet, usually. And that is to get a consistent speed along the length of the street. You know, if we just put one on the street and it may be a long street or so, we wouldn't expect drivers to maintain the slower, more residential appropriate speed for the whole length of the street. So we would probably see that they would continue to drive however they typically were. They may slow down real fast at that one cushion, and then they know there's not another one, so they pick their speed back up and carry on. So we don't want to encourage that. So that's why we put them in a series spaced out along the length of the street. Okay. Speed tables are similar devices, but they do not have the gaps that accommodate the emergency vehicles. So they cover the whole width of the street. We don't use these on many streets, and we particularly don't use them very often on local residential streets. They may be the streets that we have higher speeds or volumes on, because the speed tables are a little bit longer in length. You can see those sections in the picture on the right that they're made longer as you go over the device. Usually 14 feet to 21 feet. But these would come with the same signage as you approach the speed tables. They're made of the same material. They're rubber. And what's great about these, both the speed cushions and the speed tables, because they're drilled into the pavement in these modular pieces, when it's time to repave the road, the contractor can, remove the material, the device, and store it, and then put it back after the street's been repaved. So that's a benefit of them. They're also, easy to install. So NDOT has done some before-after data collection on these type of installs of speed cushions, and we just like to show their effectiveness, because we often get that question. The graph on the left is an average speed comparison of before and after after those have been installed. And so the before showed an average of 31 miles per hour. And then the after showed an average speed of 22 miles per hour. So that was a really great reduction that we kind of expect on most of these installs. Then the graph on the right is the 85th percentile speed. And so I'll explain what the 85th percentile speed is real quick. That is the speed that 85% of the traffic that's going on the street is going that speed or below. And so 15% of the traffic is going above that speed that's measured. So, and it's just a measurement that we traffic engineers often look at, so we kind of understand what the prevailing speeds on the street are and what those driver behaviors are. So in this before-after measurement, the average 85th percentile speed went from 37 miles per hour before the cushions were installed to 25 miles per hour after the cushions were installed. So we find that to be really successful and effective tool. I do want to go back because I often get this question about speed cushions and speed tables, but these devices, you know, where do we place them? What about driveways? When we place these, we don't put them right behind a driveway because we know that would be really cumbersome for someone turning in and out of their driveway. So we try to place those about 15 feet away from driveways, or a minimum of 15 feet away from driveways, so that you're not having to experience that every day, or having to back over them kind of sideways or at an angle or something. So we do keep them away from driveways and streets and intersections. We can't put them in the middle of an intersection either. So wanted to make that point. So radar feedback signs is another tool in our toolbox, and these are signs that are typically placed like these pictures show, with a speed limit sign, and it measures with radar the speed of vehicles that it's approaching, and provides a reminder to drivers or an alert to drivers when they are going above the posted speed limit. So if a driver is going above the speed limit that's programmed into the sign, then it will flash at the driver. We've seen some good reduction and compliance using these tools. So the 85th percentile speed we've seen being reduced as much as 7 miles per hour where these have been installed on streets. We'll often use these in places where we can't install speed cushions due to grades, like hills and curves where we can't put those the vertical measures. We might incorporate this type of measure, or on streets that have volume or that's too high for vertical measures. This is a tool that we kind of use to get slower speeds. We'll also incorporate narrowing and pavement markings. Sometimes we may have a street like the one on the right, maybe it had center line but no white edge lines, and so we can come in and put those white edge lines in to just narrow the lanes and give that visual constraint for drivers. We also use tools like bulb outs and chicanes. The picture on the left is what we're referring to with bulb outs, where we might stripe out, excuse me, stripe out the corners at an intersection when we have a wide street to narrow the crossing distance for pedestrians. Maybe it also designates where the on-street parking goes in some instances, and keeps those parked cars from getting too close to a stop sign. And just, again, with the striping, narrows the lane widths that kind of gets drivers to slow down. So when we do these, we'll do it with paint, the bulb outs, paint, and those white flexible delineator posts. Then the picture on the right, actually it's two if they're stacked above each other, but those are chicanes where striping has been used, pavement markings has been used to add curvature to an otherwise straight street. And oftentimes that's done by alternating the parking from one side of the street to the other. over the length of the street. So it adds kind of like a S shape to the street, as you can see. That type of tool, there's we have to have all the right conditions in order for that to work. A street with the right width that would accommodate that, and not too many driveways and things like that. So that's some of the things we look at when we're coming up with a design. Traffic circles are circular islands installed in the middle of usually a four-legged intersection. And they're treated similar to roundabouts where you drive around them in a counterclockwise fashion. Again, this is a tool and tactic that is sometimes hard to find the right place that it can be used, because we need the intersection to be so wide, but we still need to accommodate larger vehicles. But it creates, what it does is creates horizontal deflection through the intersection. So drivers that are going through the intersection, they may not have to stop, but they need to slow down in order to navigate through it. And typically the side streets still have stop signs, and the main street will not have stop signs, but will need to slow down to kind of drive around the circular device or circular island. So those are our measures that we typically use. And now I'm showing our draft recommendation for Joe Pyron Drive. And based on the characteristics of the street and the width of the street, the length, and how the street connects, we thought that speed cushions and we're recommending that speed cushions be installed. As you can see, these are just symbols, so it's just a high level concept to give you an idea of what the spacing is. But as you can see, we're talking about 5 sets of speed cushions, and the picture on the inset there is about what that configuration would look like. It would also, like I said, include the warning signage at each cushion location, but they would be 3 sets across and have the white markings on them as well. So I might pause there and see if there are questions about this plan or anything we've talked about before. Our next slides are some updates on how the program runs and our timeline and next steps. So maybe I'll just pause here and see if anyone has any questions. You can put them in the chat box or unmute and ask those. What we're trying to do here is, get some feedback about this plan to make sure that we're on the right track, and that this is something that the people that live on Joe Pyron are interested in incorporating.
The ones you're showing, I'm sorry, this is Stacy.
Hi, Stacy.
Hi. The ones you're showing there in the picture. So a regular car could go down the middle and get past that?
So they can't really go down the middle and hit the gaps because of the specific width that these cushions are. They are 6 feet wide, which is wider than the wheelbase of a passenger car or even a pickup truck.
Okay.
And so, no, they could get one wheel in a gap and another wheel on the cushion. They could do that in this excuse me, configuration. But like I said, that is a less comfortable drive over the cushion itself.
Okay, you did say emergency vehicles can go through that though.
Emergency vehicles can, correct. So your ambulances and fire trucks, they have a wider wheelbase, and so they're not as affected. And that's why NDOT likes this type of tool.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions about this draft proposal? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to think that that means that this is generally supported. We like what we're seeing here with the tool that's used. These are spaced around 400 feet apart, and that's kind of our target. That's what we typically look for in placing these. And like I said, we avoid driveways. That can be tricky in dense neighborhoods, but we do avoid driveways. So that often leads to maybe a little bit wider gap between or spacing between one set and the other and so forth. But we've shown these at approximately the location where we think we would be putting them. All right. So no other questions. I'll move on so that get you back to the rest of your evening. So this is a flow chart of our whole program. And as we discussed a little earlier, the application, it starts with an application. Residents actually apply to have their street considered for traffic calming. And we have 2 cycles per year where the application window is open. The next one, the next application window is going to be the first 2 weeks of March of this year. And the application is a form-based, it's online from NDOT's traffic calming website. You can enter that in and apply during that open window. Then we take our list of all those streets that have applied for traffic calming, and we collect the data that's needed where we don't have data. Once a street's applied, but it doesn't get selected, it stays in our process, and maybe it gets selected the next round. So we often have some of the data that we're looking at for our list of streets that have applied for traffic calming. But so we'll collect all the data that we need, the traffic data, where the sidewalks are and all of that information, and put it through our process and select the next round for traffic calming. And that's usually based on budget that's been allocated to the program every year. Typically it's been 25 every round, so 50 streets per year. Then we do our neighborhood meeting. That's what we're doing here with you all. And that's where we go over the program, because many people don't know anything about it, but they got their mailer and notice about the meeting, so they're interested and are tuned in to learn about the project. This is where we are, like we did, present the draft concept and talk about our next steps. So from here, we're gathering information and input. If there are changes that need to be made to the plan, we can do that. But from here, we would go and prepare the more final design that's ready for the contractor to build. If during this meeting we had a lot of discussion and requests for changes to the plan or something, we might need to have a second neighborhood meeting. And so we would schedule that after we finalize our design, that we incorporated the plan or the input that we got during the meeting. So if we needed to have another meeting, we would advertise that the same way. We would communicate with our neighborhood resident and council member and schedule that and advertise it with the meeting notices. Then after that, after the design's completed, and that takes about 2 months, we would do the online ballot. And so I have 2 slides coming up. I'll talk more about the ballot phase of the program, because that's our next steps, perhaps. But from the online ballot, then we'd go into the construction phase. So if a project is successful in the ballot, meaning that we got a 66% favorable votes, then the project moves into the construction phase, which is the materials need to be ordered and received from the vendor, and then NDOT coordinates and works with their contractor to get it installed. Now that could be a lengthy process. NDOT is working hard to speed that up, but we want to be upfront with you. It's at least a 10-month process, but after the ballot closes. So my next slides, I'm going to talk about the ballot process. So similar to the meeting notice cards, we send these postcards out to those that are eligible to vote for the project. So the picture in the top left is kind of what that card looks like. It has an online ballot access with the QR code. There's a unique ID for every property that's on a sticker on the bottom right hand of the postcard. And so when you receive that postcard, you can vote yes or no for the project. And from those excuse me, links on the postcard, you can view the plans. We post the more detailed plans of the traffic calming project on NDOT's website. So anyone that receives that postcard and they're maybe not familiar with the project itself, they can review the plans and then vote yes or no. So if 66% of the respondents that vote yes, then the project will move forward. So it's not, I want to be clear, it's not 66% of all the people on the street or the properties on the street. It's 66% of the respondents. And it's, like I said, it's an online form that you can vote. That link takes you to an online form. And also on the postcard, though, is a phone number to NDOT. So if someone receives their postcard, they're not able to vote online for whatever reason, they can get some help from someone at NDOT to guide you through the process. So the ballot zone, this is speaking to the eligibility. So I'm showing the yellow parcels on the map here on our street on Joe Pyron are those that are eligible to vote. But those are residential properties, churches, and schools, and they each get one vote. So, you know, it's not everybody that lives in the house gets a vote, but it's one per property. And it's all the properties that abut the right of way. So your address might be on a side street, but you have a side yard or something on Joe Pyron. So those properties are eligible to vote. We don't take votes from vacant properties, and businesses are ineligible. We don't have that case on this street, I don't believe, but it does happen on some of our other streets. And it's one vote per property owner. So in some cases, there may be property owners that own multiple properties on the same street. Those properties owners get one vote for the ballot. Are there any questions about the balloting phase and anything about that?
So I do have a question. I just want to make clear. So the only participants that can vote are those that reside on Joe Pyron or streets that connect to it. Is that correct?
Correct. It's not all the properties on the streets that connect to it. It's if there's a property that has any frontage on Joe Pyron. It could be there's, you know, if it's a corner lot, you know, their address might be on Jessica Taylor, but I'm just making this up. But if the address is Jessica Taylor, but you still have a frontage, you have that property abuts Joe Pyron, that property gets it. Is eligible to vote. But all the properties on the rest of the street, if it doesn't have, if the property doesn't touch Joe Pyron in some way, then they're not eligible to vote.
Okay, understood.
So the yellow that we have drawn here are those on this particular street. Any other questions? I'm showing my contact information. This is my email address as well as NDOT's traffic calming email address. And I'm not going to wrap up just yet because I want to kind of summarize, but I'm also showing here the trafficcalming.nashville.gov, the website. This QR code will take you there as well, but the website is trafficcalming.nashville.gov. And that's where NDOT houses all the information about traffic calming. Our traffic calming manual is there. That's where the links to these meetings that we record are there. So if your neighbor hears about this project and wants to know more, you can send them, direct them to that website, and they can find the meeting and learn exactly what you did here. The votes for the ballot results are on there. So once we tally those votes, we post the results, not individual votes or anything like that, but just the summary of it. 72% in favor, so it passed. So we post those there. The ballot is over after 6 weeks, and the closing of the ballot for each particular street is on that postcard. So you'll know when to start checking and finding out what the result was. All of our design plans for all the streets are posted on this website as well. And our online tracker map it is there. And when we have the application open, that is also accessed from this website. So a lot of information about the traffic calming program is posted there. So I haven't heard any real feedback about changes to the plan or anything. So what I'm hearing is that we like the plan. We want to probably move forward with this plan, which means our team would put together a more detailed design plan that you can it'll lay out all the locations of the cushions with some specific details about, it's 48 feet from this mailbox or something like that. You can kind of see where it lays in the road. And once we have that together, what we do is we post that to the website, and then we will reach out to council member and let Councilmember Hancock know that we've got our ballots ready to go out and those postcards are going out. And then after that 6-week window is over, we'll tally the results and post that on the website. And put it into the construction queue if it's favorable. If a plan, for whatever reason, does not get enough favorable votes, if it's the yes votes are 59% or anything under 66%, then we will come back and look at a less intrusive plan, such as the radar feedback signs. What you're really voting on, what the program requires, is the vote for vertical measures in the street. So it doesn't mean you get nothing, but what we would do is try to come up with something that is less intrusive, like paint markings or signage, radar feedback signs that we talked about earlier. So what I'm hearing is we can move, we don't need a second meeting unless anyone says they think that's necessary. We could just move forward with finalizing our design plan and then getting the ballots ready and sent out to property owners. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. I think it sounds acceptable.
Good. Councilmember, did you have anything you wanted to add or say?
No, thank you for your time today. I'd just like to thank all the neighbors for participating, and especially Stacy for doing all the hard legwork at setting this up. Thanks, Stacy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for your time and input. That's what we really want with these meetings, is to get the information out there, get some participation and input in case we need to adjust our plan. But it sounds like we're on the right track, and so we'll push ahead and get that going.
Good. Thanks to everyone for their time,
Great.
and
Thank you.
especially Amy, of course.
Thank you all. Well, have a good evening.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
night.
Thank you.